Hello everyone, welcome to Full Grown Impressions, a series where I'm going to be taking a more abbreviated look at a bigger variety of games, rather than the more in-depth approach I take with a Let's Play, where one game can be stretched over a month or two or even three, and especially in the case of Kingdom Hearts, where it's been like 6 months. But like I said, I want to just introduce a little bit more variety into the channel. So basically what I'm going to be doing is taking a variety of games, and the first one of these is going to be Evoland, and we're going to be doing sort of like a first impressions type video, even though I've played through where I want to stop, so it's not technically first impressions. It's not a game that I'm, intimate with, or it's not a game that I've been playing for 10 years in the case of Kingdom Hearts or whatever. So before we get started, I just want to say that basically I'm going to put all the information in the description, like the link to the Steam page and all that, but right now it's $9.99 on Steam, and if I'd gotten this out a couple of days ago, I could have saved you guys $1, because it was $8.99, but at least it's only $9.99 right now, so it's not too expensive. The only complaint that I have is that it is a tiny bit short, so just consider that when you, consider if you're going to be buying the game or not. Just consider how short it can be. Like I said, I'm not going to play the entire game right now, but let's go ahead and jump in. The only thing right off the bat, it says that red warning up there. It doesn't play well with my drivers for some reason, and it's the only game that I have that does that, so I'm not sure why. But here we get the right key. Basically what that means is we can only move to the right, which is lucky because over here in that treasure chest we get the left key, and now we have 2D movement, so we can move, up, down, left, and right, kind of like pretty much every game on like the NES. And even though this art style right now, it's not even as good as what would be on the NES, so I have to imagine this is more of like an homage to a Game Boy RPG, maybe, I'm not entirely sure. I didn't really play the original Game Boy all that often, especially not like major RPGs. I did play Link's Awakening on the Game Boy Color, I believe. I think there was like a DX version or something, like the deluxe version I played, but if there was an original version, I actually never played that. But speaking of Zelda, we get a sword, so we can actually cut down these bushes and stuff, which reminds me a lot of Ocarina of Time, of course. Pretty much actually every Zelda game that I can think of, but we're going to be using that technique quite a bit here, especially at the beginning of the game. Now here we're fighting what appear to be Octoroks from, pretty much every Zelda game, actually. And when I was playing this game for the first time, this is why I probably shouldn't be playing the First Impressions series before I actually do the video. These trees, like this one I'm standing in front of right now, it kind of reminds me of, and I would hate to mispronounce this, but Pseudo-Rudo or whatever from Pokemon. Those trees, that's kind of what they look like, I guess. But here we get a save point so we can actually save, and we're already progressing past like the NES era of games, because of course the original Legend of Zelda did not have save points as far as I remember. No, it definitely did not have save points. But we can also collect things like stars, and in this treasure chest there's going to be a card which allows us to play Double Twin later on. I've actually never played Double Twin in this game yet, but I have to imagine that it is something like a triple triad from Final Fantasy VIII, as we get our first bit of color here. But in Final Fantasy VIII there was a card game called Triple Triad, and in Final Fantasy IX I think there was a card game called Tetramaster, which were both pretty fun games. Hopefully, when you get an enemy in a corner like this, you gotta be careful, especially in this game, because you only have one hit. We don't have a health bar or anything, so you don't want to get hit or you're gonna go back, of course, to the last save spot, and that bat almost got me right there. But I'm gonna go ahead and save here, because over here we're gonna be getting our story. I'm gonna go ahead and speed up through this, because it's a fairly, I was gonna say unique. It's actually the opposite of a unique story in an RPG, and it kind of points fun at it down there. This plot is so deep and rich. It's not exactly deep and rich. I mean, that's kind of the point. Basically what the point of this game is, it's kind of an homage to a whole bunch of RPGs, just actually RPG tropes in general, as we move up to, like, I guess more of an NES or SNES RPG here. But it's kind of a tribute or an homage to RPGs of the past. So when you see things like, this plot is so deep and all that kind of stuff, it's kind of poking fun at the fact that, old RPGs and stuff pretty much all have the same exact plot, as far as I can tell anyway. But now we get sign panels. What would an RPG be without a sign to tell you where to go? I probably should have examined this before. I can't believe I didn't look at that treasure chest before I went to the left there. But this path right here between those two rocks is reserved for agile adventurers. Before, since we were on a grid system, we would have only been able to go, we wouldn't have been able to go basically in between these. So luckily, since we've gotten the free movement or whatever, we are going to be able to go through paths like that from now on. Now here we have a new enemy, which is kind of cool, I guess. We're only a few minutes into the game, we're seeing a variety of enemies. The only thing is, it kind of reminds me of the Iron Knuckles from mostly, actually, I can't remember exactly what the first game was that had an Iron Knuckle in it in the Zelda series, but it reminds me specifically of the Iron Knuckles from Ocarina of Time once again. And I hate to say, like, hate to keep mentioning Ocarina of Time all the time, but that was the Zelda game that I played the most, probably. It might be tied with Majora's Mask. But now we are in more of a, kind of a Final Fantasy turn-based system here. And we get, for winning fights, we get Gliss, and we got 50 there. I guess that's supposed to be a reference to Gil, but also we get Mode 7. Now, Mode 7, it reminds me, the first game I remember seeing Mode 7 in, actually 2 games, as we're fighting what looks to be a Chocobo here. But in Final Fantasy 6 or 3 in the United States, at the beginning of the game, when they're walking through that snowy area and they're in their, you know, their Magitech armor, I think it was, is it Magitech? I can't remember. It's been a while since I played that game. But at the beginning of that game, they, you know, they show a bit of Mode 7. And then also in Super Mario RPG, the infamous, like, minecart ride in Moleville, I think is what it was called, was also an example of Mode 7. But basically Mode 7 is just a, you know, I guess a mode that shows sort of like a pseudo 3D atmosphere, I guess. Now, hopefully I don't die here. I might as well go ahead and save. I would really hate to die, especially this far, because I don't remember when we saved last, but as soon as we defeat what I'm just going to call Iron Knuckles, we're going to unlock this treasure chest, which entirely changes the landscape of where we're at right now, and it looked like, I couldn't exactly read that, but I think it said Papunika Village or something like that. Another reference, once again, to a Zelda game, because as we all know, if you played Zelda, there is a village in pretty much every game that I can think of in the Zelda series called Kakariko Village. And just like Zelda in Final Fantasy, we can enter people's houses for no reason, really. I mean, we can go in there and rummage around, especially taking their treasure chest here, which unlocks an innkeeper. You can pay, I think, yeah, 10 gliss to rest at the inn, but I don't think I've taken much damage, and even if I have, I don't think it's really worth it. But when I was playing it for the first time, I saw in the inn here a kind of a love letter to Sakaguchi. And if you don't know who Sakaguchi is, basically, I believe he was the executive producer, or just like the designer or something. He had a high position in developing the original Final Fantasy games. And I think the last one actually that he himself created or designed or whatever was Final Fantasy X-2. So maybe that's a sign for why Final Fantasy has gone down in recent years. But that treasure chest right there opened up this NPC, which appears to be way bigger than we are, and that is because we are a child. So to get rid of our child status, it's not, I kind of presented it like it was a status element here, or a static, you know, negative thing, but to get rid of that, we need to go down the well here. In the well, we find, it kind of looks like from Paper Mario. Speaking of Paper Mario, I hate the fact that it's been 4 months since I uploaded a video of that, but the Goom Nuts, that's what it kind of reminds me of. But if we eat it, we of course actually grow into apparently an adult, and I like how the camera zoomed out a little bit. Over here there is either a star or a double twin card. I really wish that they had some sort of way to play double twin at the beginning of the game, because I played a significant amount of time, like an hour maybe, and I didn't see anywhere where I could play double twin. Maybe I just missed it or whatever, but I wish I could, you know, show that off. But the reason I don't want to maybe play so much of this game right now, I don't want to show too much, I should say, is because the game, like I said, is fairly short, so I would hate to, you know, spoil too much of the game for you. But now that we are an adult, we can come in here and activate the shopkeeper, and we need to buy a longsword and copper armor. The only thing is that we don't have enough money to buy, or gliss, I guess. We don't have enough gliss to buy the copper armor. And I bought the longsword mainly because we're going to have to come back out here and fight some enemies to get more gliss. And I think the copper armor is like 150, so we're going to have to fight, I believe, 2 enemies here. I love how when I want to get into a fight, it doesn't, you know, get me into a fight. But the reason I bought the iron, or the longsword or whatever right then, instead of waiting until I had enough money to buy everything, is because once you buy the longsword, I've found, you can defeat all these enemies in pretty much one hit. So I thought that would be just, you know, more kosher for taking out these enemies. And speaking of slime, I don't remember, there's probably, actually it kind of reminds me of Dragon Quest Heroes Rocket Slime. You know, that series of games, actually just Dragon Quest. I don't know why I specifically said a game on the DS. That slime is what it reminded me of. But also there is an enemy in Majora's Mask that slime reminds me of. But I can't remember, I don't think this is the right house. Yeah, this door's locked. There's a enemy in Majora's Mask called the slime, I think, and I think they're red and blue and green. I don't know, that's just what it reminded me of. But now that we have enough money, we can come in here and buy the copper armor. And there's other stuff in here too, like potions and Phoenix Downs they lifted completely from Final Fantasy. I was about to say Final Fantasy VII, but also there's a rare card in here. I can only imagine that that is a good card to use in Double Twin, I think is what it was called. I almost called it Twin Dragon, but I don't think it's really worth it right now for me to grind out 5 more fights just to get enough money to go in there and buy that card. But the reason we needed to buy the copper armor and the longsword is because I probably should have shown this before, but there was a barrel or something right here that we wouldn't have been able to get past, because if we talked to this guy, he would have said something like, you can't progress past here without being equipped, and now that we're equipped, we can't actually go by there. But that also reminds me of Mido in Ocarina of Time at the beginning of the game, where he wouldn't let you pass to the Great Deku Tree if you weren't prepared. But now that we've kind of gone through that village, there's not really much more to do in there. We're getting in a fight with Scavens, I guess, and I think it's a forced fight. So it's another RPG trope where basically we're being forced into a fight to further a plot development. But speaking of Scavens, it looks like they have a cherry on top. It's almost like an ice cream sundae, it looks like there. We got a hefty size of bliss there. I'll get into what I was about to say in just a second. But now we've saved this girl, apparently. And we can name her, by the way. And I just thought I should point out that her name is Kairos. It depends on how you say it if you're going to be able to recognize what this is a reference to or not. Kairos, I think anyway, is a portmanteau or portmanteau. I don't know how to say that word, but you know, hopefully you know what I mean. Kairi from Kingdom Hearts, and Aeris also from Final Fantasy VII, or yeah, Final Fantasy VII. I think that's supposed to be what that is a reference to. But as soon as we go into this dungeon over here, I think there was some collectible off to the left over there that I don't really feel the need to collect right now. And here we're going to be able to name our main character. But first we need to learn about the story of the crystal that is in here. That also, I think the caves here were called the Crystal Caves, so it kind of works out. But Clink is the name of our main character, which I'm guessing is a, you know, a combination of the words Cloud and Link. That's just what makes sense to me. But now that we've got the name, at least the girl is finally noticing we're an actual human being. Unfortunately, apparently that also means that we're going to be getting into fights with some cave monsters. And for some reason, I always miss that first attack of this Cobra Zero. I've played through the beginning of this game like 2 or 3 times. Every single time, miss that first attack. But now that we have another party member, we can go into the dynamics, I guess, a little bit of, you know, the party system in this game. It's a really simple game so far, at least as far into the game. But this girl over here, Kairos, is our mage. So if we click on magic, we can actually heal ourselves. I believe we have full, yeah, I was going to say, I think we have full magic anyway. So she's going to be kind of invaluable going forward, and there's not really any downside to using MP, because I don't see an MP meter anywhere. Apparently Clink has, I can't think of a status ailment that would make me unable to hit things like from Final Fantasy. Maybe like, I know there's like maybe blind or something like that. I can't remember if that is a status ailment from Final Fantasy or not, but for some reason he is being, you know, kind of stubborn when it comes to hitting enemies. Now this enemy right here, it kind of reminds me of, in Pokemon actually, there is a, I cannot remember for the life of me what it's called. I played Pokemon a lot, but for some reason I just don't remember, you know, all their names. But it reminds me of a Pokemon from, I believe it was Ruby, Emerald, and Sapphire, that generation. It was like a Steel-type Pokemon. If you guys are, you know, Pokemon fans, you'll know what I'm talking about. But RPG fans will now rejoice because we have collected experience points. And I was gonna say, we can run away from fights, but kind of now, since we have experience points, we might as well go ahead and fight as many enemies as possible to get, as you know, more Gliss and XP. But Clink has leveled up, and so has Kairos, so we're gonna be doing more damage, and presumably we'll be healing a little bit more with Kairos's heal spell. But up here we get a life down, luckily, because, well, actually it's not really that big of a deal, because we're not really close to dying or anything. You know, Clink isn't really doing that much more damage. Luckily, Kairos was able to finish that enemy off. But now that we have the healing fountain, we can interact with it and also save your game. I can't remember a game where that actually is used, and by the way, there's a blocked off path up here, so we need to come back down here. But I can't remember a game where there is a fountain like that. Maybe it's just like a generic, you know, RPG trope they're putting in, but I haven't played any games that I remember where that was like an actual part of the, you know, dungeons and stuff. But earlier on in the episode, I just thought, like, I kind of wanted to mention it. They were talking about how basically the adults, anyway, would not talk to the children as we unlocked that path that was up there with that switch. The adults would not talk to the children. I cannot remember, also, I can't remember a game where you play as a child and are treated badly by adults, but also, I guess the fact that you're a child and you grow into an adult is kind of a watered down version of the coming of age story that is present in a lot of RPGs. But now we finally found that crystal that we were looking for at the beginning, and we've almost said awoken, the guardian of the crystal. This is Kefka's ghost. Apparently this is or maybe this is a sequel, or it occurs later than Final Fantasy 6 or 3, because of course Kefka was an enemy or a boss in that game, and now we're fighting Kefka's ghost. Now he has animation, and it says he looks much more dangerous now. I guess that was supposed to be a joke, but it actually does make him look a lot more intimidating, so it's kind of cool how they, put that in there. Pretty soon though, we're going to be getting into a more 3D element. I hate to spoil anything, but it kind of loses almost, I hate to say this, by the way, this attack right here, it doesn't matter, you can't, or this status right here, if you attack him, he always counters with phantom counter, so you just gotta take the brunt of that attack, I guess. Luckily, you can just heal. But I've always been a fan of these 2D sprite-based RPGs, like Final Fantasy 3 and Final Fantasy 6 and stuff. I feel almost like when it goes to the 3D aspect, it kind of loses a little bit of its magic almost, and it's kind of weird to say, because that's kind of the point of the game, is to progress through, the years of RPGs and stuff like that. Maybe I'm just, maybe lovesick or homesick or whatever you want to say for those 2D sprite-based RPGs, but as far as what I think about this game, I think, first of all, this fight kind of shows you right here. I probably should have healed right there because Kairos is getting kind of low, but this fight right here just kind of highlights the very simplistic battling in this game. It might get more, strategic later on as we defeat Kefka's ghost there, but in the beginning of the game anyway, it's very much grind heavy, and I don't know if I like that so much, but the progression as far as going from the, Game Boy-esque RPG to what will eventually become kind of like Final Fantasy, 7 or 8, is kind of cool. And this is really the first step into getting to, the later 3D Final Fantasy games, because we are actually in 3D mode now. But since we've defeated that first dungeon, I think I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Like I said, I really would hate, might as well go ahead and get this treasure chest while I'm here, as we get 16-bit music. But like I said, I would really hate to spoil any more of this game, because it is a pretty cool game. Like, back before I played this, before I even knew this game existed, I am a, a computer science freshman right now. I really wanted to make a game like this, where it goes from, I was actually thinking of going back as far as text-based RPGs and going forward. It seems like somebody's already done that, but it just kind of, I've been wanting a game like this for a long time. So as far as recommending this game, like I said, it is $9.99 on Steam right now, and as much as I've played so far, I can wholeheartedly recommend it. It's the kind of game that I've been wanting for a long time, and I feel like it's pretty unique. So if you guys want me to do more of these videos, I have one more in stock already, or I haven't done it yet, but I have one more game to do. Let me know how I did, and let me know if you want me to do more. And if you want me to do your game on the channel, just throw me an email or, talk to me on Twitter. I'll have all that in the description. But as far as this game goes, I can, like I said, wholeheartedly recommend it. But I want to thank you guys for watching the inaugural episode of Full Grown Impressions. See you guys next time.